Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a direct head-to-head comparison between DSLR scanning workflow and a film scanning workflow based on a dedicated film scanner. I did a video on this Primefilm the other day and a lot of the questions were saying, is this better or worse? Is this sort of more detail or more convenient? Or what is the difference between a workflow with a digital camera and a macro lens versus obviously dedicated scanning? Today I'm using this is a Canon R5 with a 100mm macro. So maybe a particularly high resolution body, but I think most macro lenses on most cameras will give you comparable results. What I was going to do was film the whole process so you can get a sense for the time it takes, but one, that won't be particularly interesting viewing, and two, I'm under the impression that if you were regularly scanning with this setup, you might leave it up or buy one of the smaller copy stands so that it doesn't take up quite as much space as my setup. I'm running it tethered into my laptop. I'm actually going to start a screen recording just so that I can show you kind of both sides of the workflow. But if I start that screen recording now and slightly adjust my copy stand, what I've done is I've used this little spirit level to align the back of the camera to be level. Obviously keystoning is a bit of an issue with these, but that seems fairly accurate, and obviously the sensor will be parallel to the back of the LCD mount thing. I'm going to scan the same frame that I used for the previous scanner video so that you can get a familiarity of how much resolution there actually is. We're going to do the same frame twice. I will fire up that again, and if you're wondering which to go for, maybe you're in the position of having none of any of the setups, although that is only one thing. But if you have a digital camera and all you need is a macro lens to start trying this, then this could be the video for you. Quick tip for people scanning with cameras: the glossy side is the side where the numbers aren't reversed. So I'm just looking at that, and I'm going to scan emulsion side towards the lens. Apparently that gives you more results. But that is nicely lined up. When focusing with these, it's a good idea to use manual focus and punch in to 100%. So I'm going to punch in. Okay, that's good. I can clearly see the grain on this. I don't know if I can show you on the video camera, but I'm looking at 100%. So if you look, that's the whole of the negative, and then if I press this button twice, you can actually see that's just the headlight of the car. So I'm really getting critical focus, but I think that I've done that now. And actually, because I'm shooting tethered onto the computer, I can release the shutter using this. You could also use remote if you want to make sure there's no vibration, but I'm going to be very zen-like and smooth and just fire that shot off. And let's see what I can do with it. Okay, I don't have to worry so much about stability now that I have taken the shot. And if you're not familiar with Negative Lab Pro, it's absolutely amazing software for doing any kind of DSLR scanning. What you do is you set your white balance off the rebate, crop in so that you've just got your frame itself without too many crazy things outside it. In fact, I'm just going to use some keyboard shortcuts to put that the right way up. Turn my tethering system off, and if I now go, okay, digital camera frontier. This stuff, if you're using Negative Lab Pro, you'll be really familiar with. What this does is it basically flips my tone curve, it flips and sets my white and black point. So that is sort of straight out of camera, although straight out of Negative Lab Pro is more accurate. Let's see what I can do. What's before and after? So let's leave these guys and let's have a look at adjusting this file to taste. I think that's quite bright. I think that I could probably get away with a bit more contrast. This isn't an editing video, by the way. This is just me kind of preparing what we're going to look at in Photoshop. But I feel it's fair to do it in the software we use. I'm just going to take a white balance pick off of maybe an area of this pavement, because that file seemed to have a lot of magenta, and the adjustment I just made, I'm pretty confident is a big improvement. Let's have a look at soft highs, because I feel like those highlights are a bit strange looking up top. Okay, I mean, I think this image looks pretty good. These preset-y things that I'm playing with, you can play with to your heart's content. But oh, rich looks good, doesn't it? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print this, make a copy, apply. This is going to create a TIFF file, a positive file. So obviously I can't really compare the raw as a Photoshop document. But this document here, this is something we can have a look at. So let's pull that into Photoshop. Let's say we just edit the original. It's TIFF already. And that wasn't too bad. If you think about the time it took, most of the time was me focusing on the frame. So if I was doing the whole roll, I guess I could sort of push them through one by one, or even pull them from the other end. But this scan looks pretty detailed. I mean, I'm looking for dust spots. That's a big problem with DSLR scanning. Although I did clean this negative the other day for the other video, so maybe I did a very good job. It looks pretty clean. Okay. In terms of resolution, I think that this file has essentially too big a file size, because this is the same as Canon R5. This is 45 megapixels or whatever. What I'm going to do, just for sort of fairness, is I'm going to make both of these 3000. So it's a sharper reduction. It's not going to bin detail, or hopefully not too much. But let's just downsample that, and you know what? I'll rename the file as, I'll just put this as NLP, because then we can put it into the other one. Okay, so I'm all done with the DSLR scanning, but I'm going to jump on to the film scanner. This isn't just a video about the results, it's also about the workflow. So I'm going to walk you through what I do in Silverfast and sort of how long it takes me, how efficient it is. So as before, I'm going to start a screen recording, and we're going to do a picture-in-picture. So off we go. Silverfast 9, open that up. The scanner will actually do this quirky thing where it waits until it's open before it decides if it's taking a slide workflow or a strip film workflow. So this says at the top, you can see it says no film. I've got my film strip here, and to keep it fair, I'm just going to give it another little go with a rocket blower. But as I put this in, you'll see it thinks for a second. Silverfast says loading holder, Silverfast 9 will restart now. It doesn't take as long the second time around, but I think it's just a way of sort of priming the scan head for what it's going to have to do. So this is the kind of the bare Silverfast loadout. You can see here I've got it named NYC car. That's for the previous one. I can go set my PPI to whatever I want. I choose 5000. I think that's the best balance between not bloating the file size and drawing detail out of it. I can set all these now, but I actually think it's a good idea to pre-scan first. So let's just let the scanner, oh, actually, no, there's one thing before that. So I'm going to cancel the pre-scan, but you do want to have a quick look and see how well aligned your negative is. This little window is not really for anything else than pressing the forward and reverse to make sure you're right on it. But let's see what I've got. Okay, I've pressed that 3 times, and what I've done is I've actually slightly and imperceptibly shifted my negative just in the frame, but that's enough for a pre-scan. It's now, as in, if you can see the rebate on both sides, you know that you're ready to go. This scanner makes the craziest noises. It never stops the churning. But let's now pre-scan this. It's going to autofocus. This takes much less time than the full scan. The reason is the pre-scan is a low-res scan to let you make adjustments with visual feedback. I could change things like global CC now, but it'd be pretty pointless without actually having a live look at what I'm doing. So here we go. File comes through. I'm already hovering over the pipette because I can see that that white balance is a little bit wild. Let's just scan the whole frame, because Negative Lab Pro I wasn't that strict with in terms of cropping at the edges. So let's just do everything. I'm going to set my neutral point to somewhere on the pavement, and you can see that one adjustment has made it so much better almost immediately. I'm also going to activate the ISRD tool. This is the automatic dust and scratch removal. Lastly, I'm going to set the film to Kodak Gold. That's because despite this not being Kodak Gold, it's Agfa Vista. It's fairly similar, so you can see it didn't add much. Added a little bit of punch to the greens, if anything. It's not a big deal, but I like to give a Negafix profile for most color films I do. Let's have a quick look through what else we're going to do. I'm not actually going to use any global CC because one, I could do this now. I could also do this in Photoshop, but I didn't for the previous software. So I think this is pretty ready to go. I'm just going to click the scan button. And where's that? That's going to my desktop. And don't worry, the scanner takes about 3 minutes. If you want to know more about the timings, check the previous video. But let's cut to a Photoshop comparison. I feel like you don't want to watch this for 3 minutes. The scanner has just about reached the end. It's processing, which is basically Silverfast baking in the adjustments I made to what it's just scanned. When this says saved or complete, I can jump back into Photoshop. I'm going to open up the two files next to each other, align the layers, flick between them. So let's have a look. That can't take more than a few seconds. If I close this, it's actually going to appear on my desktop. And what I'll do is I'll drop it straight onto Photoshop. Here's the Negative Lab profile for reference. So let's have a look what the scanner could do. Here it is. Here's my NYC car. So if I drop that on here, and just going to quickly make the image the same size as the previous one. I do this for everything. This is not to give either of them an advantage. This is just because you don't really need more than about that much height. And if I duplicate that layer straight onto the other one, what we do is, let's quickly name this, how about XAS? Okay. And in fact, let's go fancy with it. Should we have full screen Photoshop? Okay. Now this file here looks pretty good. I think this is the scanner, but let's have a little pan around. Whatever one this is, I'm happy with this level of detail. It's done well to avoid dust. It's done well to avoid scratches. Let's zoom back to the full car and let's have a look what it was. Okay, so this one was this is the scanner we're currently looking at. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to turn the layer off, and that is Negative Lab Pro. So you can see there's a little bit more green in the Negative Lab Pro, but both look pretty amazing. I mean, I don't think that you can tell from those two that there's a dramatic difference. These windows up here look quite different. Let's have a look. So obviously we're pixel peeping like mad now, but let's have a look here between the two. The difference isn't big, is it? Let's look for a point of fine detail. Maybe we could use how about the wheel on this truck? So let's look at, first, this is the film scanner. Second, that's Negative Lab Pro. So film scanner seems to have a little bit more color noise, but there are also things that I'm noticing on the Negative Lab Pro that look like CMOS artifacts to me. For example, should we look at this car? For example, if you look at Chevrolet, or maybe some of the aliasing around it, if I do this, wow, actually, I think that the Negative Lab Pro looks better on the front of the car. Can you see the color noise just up here? That's interesting. Wow, and the number plate as well, actually. The color noise is very noticeable. I keep zooming in a bit too far, but... So this is the scanner, and that's Negative Lab Pro. You know what I'll do, actually? What I'm going to do now is I'll tile them. So let me just make sure that's turned off. Yeah. And if I go... So I just got to go out of full screen mode on Photoshop. View, 2 up, vertical. This is a much more interesting comparison because we can do close in and 2 at once. So let's go to this area on the front of the car. The hood, as you might say in America. So let's just go to this area. So this comparison here, I feel gives a little bit of an edge to Negative Lab Pro. I'm particularly looking at the word Chevrolet and the color noise in the basically monotone areas of the image. If you look at this part of the bumper and this part of the number plate, the left-hand image looks, I guess, cleaner. You're still seeing some film grain, but there is definitely digital noise in there as well. What other areas of the image would be interesting? Should we look at, how about these buildings up here? Let's just do that on both. Okay, now we reach another interesting point, which is that the color, to my eyes, looks better and more detailed on the right-hand image. That's the scanning image, and the reason for that is the green in the tree seems to have a little bit more variety on the right hand, as well as the browns in the brick colors on the red building on the right. So I would give a slight edge on color at this particular part of the image to the scanner. Let's move somewhere else. Should we look down here? There's some color. There's a red, looks like a postman with a sort of a post carrying thing. And actually got a fun little sun star off that car's bonnet. So let me just adjust the other image as well. Okay, so we're super subjective because the left-hand image has this nice slightly green tone to it, where actually the scanner image looks like it has a little bit of a blue cast to the shadows, which isn't in the left-hand image. I think the left-hand image looks more filmic. That's the Negative Lab Pro image, but again, subjective. Bike looks very similar in both. Looks a bit more purple on the right, doesn't it? Let's have a look. What's this? I don't really know what's going on in the foreground. Let's look at the man on the bike. Again, similar, but it looks like the left-hand image can display the carrier a little bit better than the right-hand one. To be honest, the left-hand image shows more detail, but does have a slight seamlessy look to particularly some of the... Can you see that sort of aliasing at the top of the head? Actually, let's move those frames. Interesting how there's a slight difference in the way it's been downsampled. Guys, I put my hands up at this point and say they are immensely similar, and if anything, I think there's more detail in the Negative Lab Pro image or the DSLR image, but I think there's more color depth in the Primefilm scanner image. If this is helpful to you, then please let me know how. If you're someone who's using a DSLR scanning setup and was thinking about buying a scanner, maybe this shows that there's little point, but also vice versa. If you have one of these dedicated film scanners and you're looking at getting into DSLR scanning, maybe that's also a bit pointless. I will say that this wins hands down on automation. The fact that you can plug in a strip of negatives and just have it chomp through them over the course of a couple of hours means that if you have a lot of film to scan, you definitely want to be using one of these. But likewise, if you shoot film intermittently and you only want to scan, let's say you only want to do 17 images of a 36 frame roll and they're not all consecutive, maybe something like this is more useful. You can kind of get an approximation on the little monitor on the camera and you can go through, take your shots, work on them. And as you saw, Negative Lab Pro is phenomenally easy when it comes to adjusting an image. I think I've been rambling for quite a long time, but let's continue the kind of, I wouldn't say discussion, but it might be an argument. Let's do that in the comments, and thanks for watching. I will catch you another time.